Hello and welcome to Audionautic Deep Space Network, episode 68. We are inching ever closer to Curtis's most awaited episode. I was originally going to go with something with the lighter, but I was like, I didn't know if you were going to still be holding it. So, there'd be no context. But for everyone not knowing what I'm talking about, in the green room while the countdown's playing, Curtis was really vibing to Trans-Pacific, our song, and he had a lighter. And I wish I still had that little lighter app on my phone because I was waving my phone hoping he'd know, but it's all good. This is our weekly music production, technology, and marketing podcast. And today, as you can see from the little runner at the bottom, we'll be talking about the recent purchase of Moog, taking a look at the free Yuhi plugin Triple Cheese. This is an awesome synth and it's free. That's the best part. You know, we love that. And then in the marketing minute, we've got a patron request, and we're going to be taking a look at some data regarding Spotify and Bandcamp payouts, and then ways to utilize Spotify as a discovery tool for your music. My name is Sunwarper. Thanks to everyone who is joining us live. Let us know in the chat what you've been up to, if any gear has caught your eye this week. And I also want to welcome everyone who's been listening over on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. The number keeps growing. We really appreciate everyone there. If you want to help the stream and podcast, leave a rating, leave a review. It all helps a ton. With me today is, who do I want to start with? Let's go with let's go with Curtis because he was trying to bucket. What's up?
All right. I was not expecting that. I'm good. Battling fatigue, battling writer's block and all that jazz, but in the best of ways. So taking a step away and just kind of trying to get on, spending more time trying different forms of creativity, stable diffusion, a little bit of mid-journey. Getting angry at Midjourney. AI is nowhere near going to take over anytime soon.
Did you watch that video I sent you of the Shaq advertisement? That's all. Oh, man.
I get it. It's a wonderful tool. It's amazing, but just it's like trying to communicate with a 5-year-old. It's just not quite there yet. And so that's been taking that thing away. So that's me. Just trying to stay away from Ableton for a little bit. Okay. Feeling the heat, feeling burnt out, but doing what I can with it.
Yeah. All right.
That's me. Eon Lake.
Hi.
Yeah. Hello. What's up? We didn't get to talk to you about this because we had a special episode last week. If anybody missed it, check it out. It was about Submit Hub. We had Jason, the founder of Submit Hub, on to talk best practices and some things about what's coming next from them, including ChatGPT integration, speaking of AI. But Eon, like, you did a show. How did that go?
I did a show, yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I thought you only shake from nerves, but I was so full of adrenaline.
That's
My
good.
hands were like this. It was filmed, and you can see it. Even at the end, if you look at my hands, you can see them going. But
that's all right, man.
It was brilliant. I loved it. It was. It's the first time I've heard my music really loud.
Sorry, I muted the wrong one. Can you say that again? Sorry.
It was very loud, and I've not heard my music like that before, and the bass was immense.
I was about to ask.
Absolutely immense.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of, went into one a bit, really. I was trying to get into it so that I could perform well, and I ended up kind of a little bit missing it as a result. So my advice to anyone who is playing live is pay attention, enjoy it, because it goes really quick. It really does. Fortunately, I had some nice low tables to perform on, and I've got a bad back, so
oh, that was good. Good physical therapy for you, right? Yeah.
It went really well, yeah. And I just want to do it again now.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I've really got the bug.
That's awesome, do you have anything lined up?
Not presently, no.
You need to change that then, don't you, really?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely want to do it again. And it's something that I want to consider more in how I create music. So I've instituted a sort of a thing that I call a play tray, where I take 1 or 2 things out the studio and just stick them on a table and go, right, I'm just messing around with these and, getting to know them better. And that's kind of what I've been doing. So, it's fun.
Oh yeah, I have to ask, what were you using the SP for? Because I saw it in the pictures.
Not much, really. I mean, primarily as a sound card. I was using a Micro Freak
Nice.
input into it, so I was using effects on that, but it still wasn't enough. So I was taking a send from that and running it through a load of stuff in Ableton as well. So it had about 3 stages of effects. And then I mixed it too low, so you can't really hear it very well.
That's all right. You learn all these things and use it in the next one, right?
Yeah, I thought I was going to. I thought I was going to use a lot of like scatter effects and things like that, but I tried it in rehearsals and it sounded a bit like I was just mentally ill and I just couldn't sit still for a minute, and it was just messing with the vibe a bit. So I had to kind of rethink a bit and dial it back and make.
I find with it. I find with these things that you have these ideas of where you want to go with them, and then obviously they don't work. They don't always work, but then that's a little seed, and you never know when that seed's going to come back.
Yeah,
and do something.
Yeah,
that always works. Sounds like a very good time. Very good time indeed. I wanted to see that, to be honest. So can we find the video anywhere?
There is a video that I have to stitch it together.
Okay,
because it's in 2 parts, and I've got the audio now, and I've done a little bit of cleaning up, shall we say, of that.
You'll never know that.
2 together at some point. I'll definitely share it with our patrons, of course. I mean, that goes without saying.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Well, that's good. We look forward to that. Whopper, what have you been doing, dude?
Oh man, I have been wrestling with all of these synths behind me and my new laptop. So I had this crazy idea, as Eon Lake is probably gonna laugh at, to do a live set of something in July. So very little prep. That's all live instruments and MIDI. So it's gonna be good. It's fine. It's working. I got it. But I spent about an hour or 2 trying to get the Erebus to receive MIDI from this MIDI hub that I have, and I kept changing all the channels. And I have a 4-channel MIDI hub, right? So it's 4 different MIDI channels that sends. And the Erebus has, I guess you could call it analog MIDI switching, like channels. You actually have to change it, and it was set to 5. So that's why I wasn't getting any sound. So I wasted like 2 hours freaking out. I was testing the one way I was doing the routing was because I don't have enough inputs, I was sending the MS1 and the Erebus into the SP, and then the SP was sending both of those into like 1 or 2 channels on the audio interface. And so the Erebus wasn't working. So first I tried going direct into the computer. That wasn't working. Then I used the mini log, which I know Howard would get excited about, Eon Lake, and it was working. Well, first it wasn't working because it was set to like MIDI 4, so I had to change it to MIDI 1. That made me realize, let me see if I can change the MIDI channel on the Erebus. And I saw these little knobs on the back with numbers. And was like, well, let's just start moving things. And at some point, it started making noise, and I was like, that's great. And then the sound that was coming through was like really weird. And I had just copied a MIDI channel from the original song, but I didn't realize that the MIDI channel, somehow the MIDI got corrupted. And so I was like trying to fiddle with the Erebus thinking it was that, but it was just this MIDI track that was all wonky. So I guess that's figuring out all this stuff is like part of the joy, so to speak. But
the frustrating joy of it all.
Yeah, like that's part of the discovery, and just like it was not fun in the moment, but afterwards I was like, I really kind of learned some things about these machines that I didn't know at the time. So it's like it's all a learning experience. And now when I do these change ups later or have more synths or a bigger MIDI channel, I like know all these things. And yeah, it was cool, but that really the moral of the story was I discovered I still do love the sound of the mini log.
Of course you do.
So I'm not sure that I'm going to sell it as I was thinking for that Pro 800, but yeah, we'll see. But I got it working, the live set, and it's interesting. It almost makes it like the DAW is just sending MIDI and then receiving audio, and I don't really have to touch the DAW. I can just do everything on the hardware. So it's like this weird DAW-less setup that's like being run by the computer. It's not a DAW-less setup, obviously, but it's a weird little thing. So
you might call it a hybrid setup. Maybe.
It's definitely a hybrid setup, but I feel like it leans closer to the DAW in the sense of its like construction, but then it's in its application, it's almost like I never have to look at the screen. I mean, I just have to go like this to hit the play button, you know, and then.
Well, that
Yeah,
whole
it's weird.
digital audio workstation thing, that's just a name for something because it's a mixer, isn't it? And it's a sequencer and it's audio recording, multi-tracking. So it's not any one thing. So what you've done is you've taken the sequencing out, or have you? Are you still doing some MIDI, or is
So
it
it's
just
all MIDI being sent into these?
But is it
the
being
hardware.
routed? Have you got arrangements in the computer?
Kind of. So I basically pulled. I have a backing track from a song that's everything I can't squeeze into the MIDI, or like live instruments I can't play live, and then I'm playing guitar, and then I'm sending 3 channels of MIDI. So one into the MS1 for a lead, probably the mini log for another thing, and then pads are going into the Prophet. But I'm doing all the tweaking live. So it's really just MIDI. I don't have any programmed MIDI, like MIDI, CC or automation or whatever. So yeah, it's a weird one, but yeah, I'll probably make a video about it if this all goes well. But yeah, so if you want to see that,
it never happened.
Yeah, if you want to see how it turns out, I'll be doing it on Bandcamp in July. There's a whole couple things I have to have come out first before I can talk more about it. But just follow me on Bandcamp if you want to stay posted on it. But it'll be interesting. But yeah, I'd be curious if anybody that's done live sets has tried doing something like that. And before we go into the news, a couple bits of the chat from our patrons. Hydrofighter is there. He says, "Hey all, what's going on, Hydrofighter? If you're in a meeting, let us know if you've got the one headphone, you know, on us, one on the meeting. It's always just interesting." We really concerned Jason with that last week. I think he was like, what? Especially with somebody that said they were driving. That was the one. We've also got Survey Channel. Abby is in the chat. They say howdy, muted in a team meeting. We got another one of those meetings. And Survey Channel, to Eon Lake's point, says, I don't even remember my live set at this point. That's how much adrenaline was rushing. Now I've got 3 more shows booked. Yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations.
That's what we need. Yeah.
Yeah.
Completely. It's lovely to see everyone here. Thank you ever so much for joining us. We have a very lively show, you might say. I mean, there's a stat. If you've seen the docket, which you haven't, but
they saw this, and let us know what you thought about the little runner at the bottom at the start. We're testing out a couple different things. You know, we love this new StreamYard that our patrons helped us get. So just trying different things.
Yeah. Trying new things all the way through. But yeah, we got an action-packed show. Lots going on. So should we hop to it?
Yeah, just really quick, because Hydrofighter answered my question. He said, I'm just working with 1 set of headphones today. Fully here until the top of the hour, then I'll be fully cut off. Oh, well, we're happy to have you with us. And let us know as the show goes on what your thoughts are. We always appreciate what you have to say, Hydrofighter. And we've been missing you in the round robin.
We have been, very much so. Yeah. It's always nice to get something through. And Survey Channel's playing in Buffalo as well.
Nice, yeah.
Those coming through. So yeah, that's very good. So what's going on with Moog, Sunwarper?
Yes. So this was last week, but we had a packed episode for that, so we put it to this one. But I'm going to share what you put. So I got a Pitchfork article. Moog was acquired by an electronics company called InMusic, and that's also the parent company of Akai, who do MPCs, M Audio, Alesis. I think it's Alesis. I don't know. You tell me. Newmark, a bunch of brands and things like that. Very interesting. I believe in the article it says that they're going to keep the headquarters and engineer, design, and build instruments at its headquarters in Asheville, North Carolina. There's no plans as of now to move. It says that longtime Moog engineer Steve Dunnington, a former student of Bob Moog, will continue to lead product development. So I wanted to get everyone's take on this, and we actually have in the docket, we don't have to share it, but we have some comments from our patrons who we brought this up to before we covered it, to just kind of get everyone's opinion on it, because it seems, dare I say, a little bit of a controversial thing. But Eon Lake has an MPC, so I'm curious to hear his take on it to start. What do you think, Eon Lake?
I've also got a sub 37 and a sub harmonica.
Well, yeah, but that's pre-buy.
Yeah.
But yeah, you are a Moog owner, so I guess that makes it even more interesting.
Yeah, I'm kind of reassured by the fact that this parent company, if you look at the brands they already own, they're kind of they will have their own identity to a fair degree. And really, if you're a fan of what Moog do, then your concern will be, will they be able to retain their somewhat quirky identity and odd approach to designing new, weird, and wonderful things. And I don't know, it seems like that's not such a risk at the moment from what I see, and how they have other brands that are kind of niche players, but they're also power players in their respective markets, and they do what they do and are quite well known for it. So I don't know. I did think when I heard, they were bought, I thought, oh God, here we go. But then, looking into the detail a bit more, it doesn't concern me overly at the moment.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, and I mean, Moog, their synths are typically a little bit on the more higher end pricing, right?
Bit boutique, you might say.
Yeah, a bit boutique, and it's interesting because I feel like, with all those clones from Behringer and things like that, I wonder if that had any effect in this sale. And we were talking in the Patreon, and I'll read some of what they wrote in a minute. But I was kind of saying I would love to see something like the Gibson Epiphone, where you can have those premium versions of Moog, and then they also have these lower tiered entry models that maybe have concessions, or they're virtual analog even, but something like that it opens it up to a different market, so to speak.
Yeah. That comes down to strategy a lot, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Does that water your brand down, or
True?
Is there someone already doing that who may remain nameless?
Curtis, what's your take on? Oh, I'm sorry, Jan. Go ahead.
I was just thinking in the sense of, if they're already doing it and then you do it as well, is that, I don't know. But I mean, these are the considerations. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. And Curtis, what's your take?
In a similar vein, I think, it seems like they're keeping everything the same. They've just bought them out, essentially, and if they're not going to rock the boat, that's definitely a good thing. It's just another example of companies taking over companies and eating themselves until there's no more companies to eat. So, we'll see how that works out.
Yeah.
But
that is something to consider too. But what's the alternative? Bankruptcy, or going out of business, or not having that synth accessible, or that company accessible anymore?
Well, this is it. And I think that it's going to be an interesting one to see where they take it. I echo what you're saying, Sam Warper, in regards to maybe we have some sort of like cheaper versions.
Well, we are guitarists, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I'd love to see that come through. I would really love to see that come through. But the idea of them keeping everything the same and keeping the guy at the front and at the helm, so they can basically say, you can carry on doing what you're doing, just we're going to skim off the top, essentially. Yeah, if that makes sense. And that's encouraging. If they were going to shut anything down, then that would be an issue. Moog are awesome and they're great. And if I had 50,000 crowns, I would own a lot of Moog product, but I don't.
Wouldn't we all?
Exactly. But if as far as boutique products go, Moog that really interests me. If they're gonna then make that more affordable, which some were discussing in the Patreon, then that would be interesting. So that's my take for now.
And I want to get everybody in the chat. What's your take on this? We'd love to hear from you. And then I wasn't able to take screenshots of this on the Twitter group from our patrons, but I want to read a little bit from our patrons. They had some interesting points. So Lars says, Moog has always been a premium brand, also used to be up there, but their quality really started to slip after they got bought out. Maybe this could result in more affordable Moog gear, but hopefully not at the expense of the quality. And then Abby says, will InMusic dilute the Moog brand? I imagine their VST Model D and is it Moog Fogers? I don't know how to say it. Yeah, will probably show up for the MPC. That's something I wanted to bring up, is that with this being under the same brand, I would bet we'll also see plugins. Like there's a Moog Model D on the iPad and it works for new Macs. And I've been using it for a song actually.
That's mad as well.
It's crazy. Yeah. And so that would be an awesome connection and connectivity. And I guess one of the perks of being owned by the same parent company. I'm sorry to cut off, to continue what Abby was saying. That will make Moog some revenue. If they do any crossover products, though, they will dilute it. And are they going to try to compete with Behringer clones? You'll know the writing's on the wall if they close down Asheville and move manufacturing overseas. Yeah, that's an interesting point. And then Bendu says, I don't think you'd get an instrument as quirky as Subharmonicon with corporate supervision. It's a shame. So a little bit of varying opinions there. And that's what we love about our patrons and just talking about this stuff in general, is to see kind of everyone's perspective and point of view. And another of our patrons, Frequency Control Center, is in the chat. And he says, everyone is owned by someone these days.
Yep.
That's the way forward. So yeah, it's an interesting one. It's more and more of these are happening as they go out. I mean, it would love to see an expansion of the accessibility. Would that come with a dilution? Most likely, maybe, don't know, but hopefully not. But it's just an interesting one in that regard. Yeah.
I mean, I just keep thinking, like, wouldn't it be so cool to have these lower end priced models that you could just get introduced to and have the sounds? I mean, maybe plugins are part of it, like more of these Model D type plugins and stuff. I think I bought that for like 10 or 20 bucks on iPad, and then now it's on, you can use it on the M2 Max. Like, it's like you're using it too. It's crazy. Say again.
There's an Animoog one. My favorite one is the System 15, though. That app sounds nuts. It really does have some thick tones in it.
Yeah, and FCC has another thing to say. He says, InMusic own 19 music-related companies. You'd like to think they seem to know what they're doing. You sure would hope so with that with that information.
It'd be nice to see. I wouldn't mind, like, okay, so on the Ultranova, I've got a stack of patches that I've built based off of Moog sounds, right? And I call them mugs. And I call them mugs because it's like a cheap knockoff kind of thing. You know what I mean?
I like it.
Mugs.
And so I would love to see like a physical like mug. I don't know. You call it a Sab Humonicuna, for example.
A Subharmonicon.
I would love to have it. I'd have it pride of place right there. And I would love it. It would be great. So more accessibility, like more and more kids are getting into it. More and more people are like, every day someone opens up Ableton or FL Studios for the first time and they go right into their VSTs. I would love to see them start playing with hardware that's cheap and accessible. So I wouldn't mind that in that regard, as long as we're not sacrificing.
Yeah, if there's still that higher end model, the premium models, then like what is, at least from, I'm not talking maybe from a business model, but you would think it would be a good thing, but maybe not because it might dilute the brand. But what is there to lose from having the two? Like Gibson, I don't think gets diluted. It almost makes the Gibsons more appealing because you're like, oh, I can get that, like the Les Paul from Gibson if I have this Epiphone, you know, like it's something to look up towards and want to move to.
Yeah, completely. Cool. Any more thoughts on that before we move on?
No.
Awesome. Well, it's just probably a good time to say that this show is brought to us by our patrons. Hello, lovely to see you here. Lots of you in the channel today, in the chat today. That's the word I'm looking for there. Definitely not overtired. But yes, this show, our patrons are our lifeblood. We thank you ever so much for letting us do this more and more and more. If you like what this is, you like the sound of this, you like what we do, even if you're on Spotify or if you're on Apple Podcasts or something like that, consider becoming a patron. Starts, as you can see here, at $2 per month. You get exclusive content, which some will go into in a moment. But what it really does is it allows us to keep on doing what we're doing and try and strive every week, week in, week out, that we do this, to try come up with something new, come up with something more dynamic, and spend more time doing it, because we can do that. And that's really an exciting opportunity for us. And we hope that we can keep bringing you great content.
Yeah, if you want to check it out, we, as Curtis was saying, have a bunch of extra things you get from being a member. You can join exclusive hangouts we do called Starstream Hangouts. There's once a month at the moment, and then soon we'll be doing a second one for the 5-tier and up, where we'll be going over some of what we've been listening to. Basically, a redone version of our show, Binary Stars. We're bringing it back for our patrons.
Third time's a charm.
Yeah, I thought it was a second. I thought it was but we'll see, whatever. But we've been asked about it a lot, so we wanted to bring it back, and it's something special when we get to share it with our patrons. We also have exclusive Twitter group and Discord channels. The Discord is open for everyone, but we have one special for our patrons, and in there you'll get exclusive access to things like upcoming interviews we'll be doing. You can ask questions. We'll tell you, hey, we're talking to so-and-so next month, any questions you have, and then we read them live and ask the person we're interviewing and get their answer, like we did with Jason last week. And then we also have one other thing that I'm totally blanking on. I will think of it later, but yeah, if you want to check it out, you can head to the link in the description or just go to patreon.com/audionautic. Oh yeah, that was the other thing. I see it right there. Every sound demo we do, you get the full version over on the Patreon.
There you go. Yeah, we just had a conversation.
And I remember because we're doing one in a moment. So,
yeah. Thank you ever so much for your continued support.
And real quick, one of our patrons is in the chat. It just joined, David. He says, "Hey, everyone driving but listening. Good. I hope if you're driving, you're doing text to speech. Please don't be texting."
Never.
And we also have FCC says that Moog Model 15 app looks like a great way to get into modular. Yeah. And David says that he's doing well. That's awesome. Yeah. Happy to have all of you with us today.
Excellent. So let's get rid of that one and then let's move to a new one. So yes, as Samwalper said before, we have some pre-recorded content today and our patrons will get the full version of this. We wanted to bring this to your attention because we love free stuff here. And this is just an affirmation there from Ian Lake. I'm just gonna sample that. It's gonna be amazing.
Yes,
just in the middle of like just a house banger. Just we do, and then but yes, we're having a look at this, and just underneath Eon Lake's lovely face, if you just wanted to crane it a little bit, there we go. We're looking at Yuhi's Triple Cheese. Not exactly new, but it is free, and we found the time, a pocket of time, in order to go through the VST itself and have a little sound demo, so you can see.
Quite honestly, this was a bit of a selfish idea on my end because Curtis convinced me to download the app or the plugin, and I opened it and I've been using it, but I was like, I really want to learn from the master about it because I just look at it and I'm like, I don't feel like learning this right now. So I was like, Curtis, you want to? I was like, do you want to do a walkthrough, maybe show the plugin and then just do a couple sound demos? But it's a really cool synth, and it's beyond just me wanting to learn more about it. I think everybody should know that it exists and it's there, and it pairs quite nicely with another free effect called Supermassive. So let's check out Triple Cheese.
That sounds interesting.
That does sound interesting.
So what are we looking at, Curtis?
So this is the Triple Cheese itself, and
Triple Cheese?
The Triple Cheese? It's a great little synth. 3 oscillators going in there. Which, if I click on here now, I'm not going to see you, which is fine. You've got 3 oscillators to play around with here, which then can all be independently attached to an LFO. You've got pluck, saw pluck, bowed, blown, resonator, damp, and stressor. These are the different waveforms that you've got in there. And then they can all be tuned, detuned, and also have their own level of vibrato on there, as you can kind of see it through. We have some global bands underneath, such as, for example, whether or not it's going to be poly or whether or not it's going to be a mono synth, and also things like gliding, and you can have aspects on there. So for example, if it's down here, I don't know if you're going to hear this, but if you have that, you got there, but then if I whack this up, you get them cool little space sounds.
Instant space.
I'm beginning to see why this is a Curtis favorite now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It does have a ton of presets, right? Now, I found out from Samwalper that I apparently have more presets than others, but I mean, I just downloaded this from you here. I haven't got any more.
Really? I swear you have more than I do. I'll have to look at it again. It's on my laptop, but when I opened it, you were like, "Oh, I use this one called like Moon something," and it just was not there.
Yeah, Moonlight.
Yeah, it's not. It wasn't there for me. So maybe there are additional packs on Yuhi's site or something, and I just missed it.
As well as down at the bottom, you've got your envelopes, which is really useful because obviously you've got your you've got ADSRs and stuff like that, which allow you to manipulate the sound. Now, the one thing that I will always say is that this, in my humble opinion, but then again, I know nothing about nothing. It's really good for pads. It's really good for pads. It's really good for spacey pads. And I mean, the basses are cool, but you know, there's lots of bass stuff, and the leads, they are the ones that need a little bit of work. Preset wise, coming out the pads, you know, you've just got gold straight out. Then you have a little bit of tweaking, and you've got something relatively lovely. Leads need a little bit more, which you'll see in the video itself. But
I was going to say where's that, but we'll have a listen.
Do you? I don't want to call you out, but do you design any patches on your own with the stuff, or do you typically adjust presets? There's no judgment if you do. I'm just curious if you do any like from initial patch and go from there, or if you like to start with a patch on
I do occasionally. I treat it in a kind of a semi-modular semi-modular sense, in the sense that I don't tend to save them. I do that on purpose because I tend to do that with like Vital. I tend to make patches and then save them.
Yeah.
But with these ones, it's like a kind of it's here today, gone tomorrow kind of vibe, and that works for me in this regard. Just because it's one of the big reasons I really like Yuhi is the fact that it has really low CPU, apart from Diva, obviously. Diva's
I was about to be like, whoa, that's a bold statement to make.
I know.
But they're upfront about that, aren't they?
They are.
Oh, yeah.
I
mean, it's in the name, right?
Exactly. But they're free ones. So the Zebralet, the triple cheese. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, like, do you have triple cheese? Or as Survey Channel calls it, triple cheeseburger?
I meant to download it the first time I mentioned. I just forget sometimes to do this.
You have too many things, right?
I'm a big fan of Yuhi. The quality of their plugins and synth voice is brilliant.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll have anything free they've got. I've got a couple of things already. Yeah, I think 3 of them. And I've paid for one as well. So yeah, I'm a fan.
Well, we've got an awesome demo from Curtis that I'm going to switch to in just a moment. But before that, I just want to share FCC. Looks like we've already converted him. He says, nice. Always love a good pad. Might have to try it out. Yeah, I've started to because of Curtis. And you'll see why when I show this video. Sounds great. But I mean, it's also in the hands that are playing it, of course. So
yeah,
you know, there is that.
Mainly about the pads.
How much for the hands?
Yeah. just ship them over to California.
I'll trade it for a subharmonicon. How's that?
Yeah, there you go. Shall we take a look at the demo?
Let's take a look. Yeah.
All right. And so we're just going to play about 2 minutes of it. If you want to see the full demo of all the crazy cool sounds that Curtis makes on this and why I got it and why FCC is probably going to grab it, we'll have it over on our Patreon after the video ends.
So there's this really awesome plugin by Yuhi that we wanted to bring to your attention today. Completely free. That's the best one. You know how much we love a free plugin here at Audionautic. And I just wanted to take you through some of the presets. Really, really beautiful sounds coming out there, out the box. There's some which will just sort you out straight away. And then you've got the user interface, which makes it so easy to change and manipulate and alter the sounds that are there and create your own. So I'm going to cut to a video now that just takes us through some of the presets. Studio, really nice. I'm sure you'll find something that you'll really enjoy and get a kick out of. And we'll put a link in the description below where you can get it yourself. Have fun.
We'll end it right on that ominous sound. If you want to see what comes next, head to the Patreon. The link is in the description. There's a lot of really cool sounds after that. And we'll also be cutting all of this into a clip. We're bringing back the ADSN clips for YouTube, testing out, as we do with marketing, different formats on YouTube, what works, what doesn't. So, yeah. Curtis, which sound of those is your favorite?
I have I like the particular one. It's just called Calm Pad. It's
That's what you were using in the start of this, right? Yeah, with the spacey sounds with the glide. Yeah.
Because it's so wonderfully smooth, it's very malleable, and then you can build an effects chain behind it. I love gritting things up. At the moment, I'm using a lot of Crush, Tritic Crush, with thanks to Maureen's friend for that one about a year ago. I just haven't stopped on that one. But like, because it's so nice and because it's so lush and smooth, it goes with a lot for filling up. You know, if you're trying to fill up the mid-range, for example, it's really nice to have it there. It turns anything instantly spacey. That's just kind of my thing.
Is it really? Spacey sounds? Huh. I never would have guessed. Well, before we move on, we got a couple bits of chat. Sunwarper, whoever this is, says, the first one sold me. And then Survey Channel says, that's a slick pad. Boy, I can't speak today. I'm sorry, guys. That's a slick pad. Yeah, I think he's in reference to the first one, which that's what I was saying. That one just, wow. FCC says I like it already. There was a really cool flute sound, and Survey Channel picked up on that. And then we've also got, the link isn't in the description yet because I didn't see this video before and I forgot to put the link, but there's the link on the video and we'll put it in the description at the end of the video. And then Survey Channel says, don't mind if I do. I think I had this at one point. Yeah, I mean, I've started using it quite a lot, and it's not in this live set that I was talking about, but it's all over Imagine Landscape's next couple songs.
It's great. Yeah, it's a wonderfully versatile little synthesizer, and it's free.
Yeah, I'm very glad you brought this to our attention a while ago, and you know, us being us, it took us a while to get there, but we got there. We got there.
We got there. Yeah. More coming. I love doing these little things as well, like these little shoutouts. It's not exactly news. It's been around for a while, but it's like again, we're always a big fan of like the PSAs, you know, public service announcements and stuff.
And free.
And free. Yeah. Maybe Vital should be the one that I do after that.
Oh, it's definitely. I was thinking we both, or all three of us, try to do something with Vital because you're familiar with it, but then Ian, like, and I, well, I don't want to speak for Ian. Like, I would be new to it because I've never used it. I'm assuming Ian Lake probably has it, but doesn't use it. Doesn't even have it. Okay. Yeah. So that might be cool. Chat, let us know if you want to see us all try and do something. Honed pro of Vital and then 2 noobs with Vital.
Yeah. That's a lot on my shoulders.
All right. 3 noobs.
But yeah, that's that one. Yeah. Anything more on that? Or our last piece of news for the day before we move into a very wealthy and marketing. Probably
Curtis gave a big sigh when I was like, there's a lot of links you're going to need to share. He's like,
I'll get on it. It's fine. That's what I do. That's what I do. I'm the link man.
It's your job, man.
So yeah.
And real quick, Survey Channel says, I want to see a live in-person demo of 3 guys on synths tweaking Vital. Well, that may happen at some point. We'll see.
With all full transparency, that is something. It's the linking of the sound from the computers into the live stream while at the same time not providing feedback. We're still working on that one. Bear with us.
I mean in person. That may be something.
In person.
We'll see. See. There's been some rumblings, shall we say, some possibilities. Ian Lake doesn't know what I'm talking about, but I would assume maybe there may be a chance, at least 2 of 3, but hopefully 3 of 3.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah.
So always fun. If there's any free VSTs that you've been vibing with, please let us know. It's a community. It's what it's all about at this stage. It's all about the community. It's all about sharing knowledge, and together we're growing. So if there's anything that you've got there, please let us know because everyone loves a good synthesizer.
We've got a Discord channel called The Production Process, and it'd be perfect to share there. We talk a lot about things there. I mean, Bendu, one of our patrons, turned at least me on, but I think all of us to the MG1 from Cherry Audio. That's a free one. That thing's awesome. Talking about Moog, there you go.
Yeah, very much so. So yeah, okay. Last piece of news for the day before we get into the marketing minute and the round robin is Novation. This is again another kind of public service announcement, maybe for those who are using FL Studios. The FL Key 49 and the FL Key 61 have been released by Novation now. I'm just going to set this up so you can see. They originally started with a little 37 key, and now they're going full whack into a 49 and a 61.
Nice.
It is. If you
We're
are
just waiting for 88, right?
Just waiting for the 88, and it will come. It has to come. It's really useful. The integration, obviously, if you there's lots of things that are integrated with the likes of Ableton, and FL has started doing similar things now. And I know a lot of beat makers are fans of FL Studios. I used it for 9 years or so before making the switch, and the compatibility with them is absolutely amazing, as it seems. I've played with a couple of them. Some of the people I work with at the school have them, and it is quite cool. So step sequencer involved, which is really nice as well. You can adjust, you can attach and map to the mixing channel, so you can mix on the fly, a little bit like Ableton in that regard. You've got a scale mode, which is really interesting. So if your music theory isn't where you'd like it to be, shall we say, it's a great way of playing single notes and then making sure that everything you do hits in the scale mode. If you're trying to bang out beats, and if you're trying to do 4, 5, 6, 7 beats per day, this could really help you in that regard. Because
just a quick addition to scale mode is actually a really useful tool for generative sounds.
Yes.
I do that with the circuit, where I set a scale, and then using the sequencer's probability and randomness, you can have you just program a bunch of keys or notes from that scale onto the sequencer, and it just bounces all over it. And then with the probability, it may not trigger. So it's a fun way to just kind of like make a melody if you don't feel like writing a melody.
I do that when I'm stuck.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I did for my latest YouTube video. Is I sample flipped a generative song I made. So I like made the generative thing on the circuit, and then I put that into the SP and flipped it and like chopped it up and did all that. It was kind of a inspiration from you, Ian, like where you had mentioned that when you're stuck, you take a song and just remix it. So I was like, well, let me start with a different start and have the generative sound and then go from there.
Oh,
nice.
That's what you need. Taking that one step further, you've got creative chord modes, so you can generate your own chord progressions and things like that for you. Again, you don't really have to think about it. We always talk about separating the hardcore art from the product, so to speak, as we move into the marketing minute. This is a great way of doing it in that regard. And also, if you were to get one, you also get the 6-month trial of FL Studios itself, and really cool as well, the expressive strings plugin from Spitfire, which is an absolutely fantastic set of sounds in there as well.
Not only that, but the XLN Audio Addictive Keys is really good. And what was the other stuff there? Clevgrand Reverb. I use that a lot as well. There's a really platey sounding plate on that. It's good.
I wonder what the cassette one sounds like.
Yeah, it's everything you need to kind of get ready. If you're kind of thinking about starting, if you've started going on your journey and stuff like that, this is a very good way to get into that. FL is a great starting tool for that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. I really like those kind of all-in-one connections to a DAW, where you have the drum pads, but you could also use them as like a launcher. You have the little mixing bits. You have like all that stuff right there. I mean, I have the Arturia Mini Lab, and it's not quite fleshed out, but there's a bunch of knobs you can MIDI CC to different things, and it kind of makes that tactile bit, like that tactile perk of hardware. You kind of get that in the DAW, and just for me personally, like that really gets me thinking creatively, and like I vibe more when I'm like, ooh, I can twist the knob and make the filter open up and stuff like that. I'm curious, Chad, if you guys feel the same. But Ian, Lake, and Curtis, what do you guys think?
Let's start with Ian Lake.
I think it's a double-edged. I think it's a win-win with that, because with all the control, it lets you record in a DAW in a more musical way, and in a way that's more fun, more human. Like you say, you vibe with it better. But then the flip side of that as well is as if you're going to perform live, you get the same sort of control center right in front of you that you can play stuff on and control everything with. Okay. And it's in a single unit. Okay, as a keyboard goes, it's quite big, but then at the same time, you don't have to take anything else necessarily.
Yeah.
So,
And Curtis, what about you?
I think to extend from that, the combination of the production process and then emulating that in a live situation, especially if you're not too worried about playing with hardware, that kind of thing, it is a really nice bridge. The tactile response, so you don't have to map everything. This is mapped to a certain set of plugins in Ableton in templates that I've made, and that took a while. But this, you don't have to do any of that. It just kind of automates it all for you, which is really cool. FL Studios itself is a really good way to get into production because it's a very lovely hybrid between your traditional form of writing, producing, mixing, etc., and taking you down that pathway, but also having lots of ability to really flip things in their own way and make something new with it as well. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that. But like I say, I used FL for 9 years or so before switching to Ableton, and it's wonderful for learning. Really wonderful.
There's not a door out there that you can't record, broadcast, and production standard stuff. It's just anyone will do. Anyone is good enough.
Apart from Logic. I kid. Logic
I really need just a GIF, however you want to pronounce it. I don't want to spark a war here of pronunciation there, but I really want that, just that I could pull up of Eon just rolling his eyes. Right there, I would have just cut to that, just zoom in right on his face, going. That's pretty much how I feel at this moment.
That's fair. I'm joking, brother.
With it though.
I gotta find what episode that was where you did it, and I'm just gonna screen record it, and we'll have it ready if it's permitted by Eon Lake.
Yeah, I don't think.
Okay, I'm taking that. Yeah, is that it's okay.
It's all right.
We'll
have it anytime we talk about Spotify, which is coming up. Just pop that right in there.
There you go. So that is the news for this week. Thank you ever so much for those who've contributed to the news. If there is something that we've missed, or if you think there is something that is newsworthy, please let us know. We do all the researching, we do everything, but we like to bring things to the table that we think that you guys will enjoy and vibe with. And some of the time that is something that you yourself is interested in, that you can shout to the community. So if there's anything that you want to contribute in that regard, come down to the Discord and put something in the chat there.
Yeah, the link is in the description.
Yeah. And with that, we go on to the marketing X minutes, where X equals the amount of minutes that's going to be. It's quite a hefty one this week.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm hoping we can get through it quickly, but I feel like it seems like it's more than it is, because it's not all that much. But I also want to say, as we get closer to the round robin, patrons, if you would like to join the call to talk in the round robin, we're talking about our favorite ways of making drums, as Curtis says, fatter with a PH. The link is in the Twitter group, and I think it's in the Discord group too. So just head over there and you'll join. You'll be in the back room, the green room, and when we get to the round robin, we'll let you in. But anyway, so today we're talking Bandcamp and Spotify, and this was actually a patron request. So I was doing some looking at the different payouts and listener bases of these two, because I mean, we all as musicians love Bandcamp, but I just wanted to look at kind of the difference in payouts, and I was really kind of surprised, given Spotify's very low royalty share, how much they've actually paid out in their lifetime. And this is according all to Bandcamp for their amount, and then for Spotify we have links to it all. So we'll start with Bandcamp. So Bandcamp, on their website, I think it's on the about. Yeah, we have a link to it, but they say that fans have paid artists and their labels $1.14 billion since Bandcamp's start. And let's see if we got it. I believe it's right there, right? It's a little blurry, but yeah, there it is. So fans have paid artists and their labels $1.14 billion using Bandcamp. And then they say in the past year alone, they've spent $186 million on 14 million digital albums, all this physicals, things like that. So really cool number. I also like seeing the new Aphex Twin that's getting bought on Bandcamp right there. So that's Bandcamp. And then I was like, wow, that's really cool. So then I went to Spotify's Loud and Clear website, which this is their where they're trying to be very open about the royalties they pay to musicians and things like that. And so right at the start on their like top 10 takeaways or something to that effect, they say that all-time Spotify payouts to music rights holders are approaching $40 billion. So I was like, what? So Spotify, who pays, I think, what, 0.000000003 cents per stream, has $40 billion paid out to artists, but labels too. And I even mentioned this in the Patreon. I would assume a lot of this is actually from, you know, the major labels getting this. But it's an interesting point, I think, given the low amount of royalties per stream that they pay out, that the payout is actually that high, to me would indicate that the listener base is massive, especially compared to direct purchases from Bandcamp being 1.14. Now, we all love Bandcamp, but what I wanted to bring to the table today, and I wanted to get your guys' opinion and take and chat, would love to see what you guys think as well. I want to talk a little bit about why you may want to be on Spotify. And if you have hesitations about that, I have a few ways at the end I'm going to talk about that. You may be able to kind of maybe have your cake and eat it too. But I want to consider using Spotify's listener base and Spotify itself as more of a discovery tool rather than like your main place to direct people and things like that. So the end goal is to get people, let's say, to Bandcamp or to your own website where you can sell merch, things like that. And yeah, Spotify has their own little merch thing, but it's $5 a month. And I mean, it's not a very good integration. So I think the first thing that I want to talk about is, and I pointed this out to the patrons, and we actually made this for a few of the patrons, using or creating a discography playlist. So you make a playlist, like for me, I put a link, Curtis can share it, Sunwarper Complete. And you just put your full discography. And I also have like some possible search terms, but also just kind of like just laying a foundation of like what to expect when you listen to it. And so I have a discography there, and you can curate the songs as you want them to be heard. And the main reason for this is free tier on Spotify cannot listen to a single track or album. So when you link Spotify on Twitter and Reddit, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, if you can link, whatever, if it's a free tiered person listening, it'll just shuffle your artist page. So it could play a song that you don't want people to hear or that you don't want to start introducing people to your music. And so on a playlist, you bypass that, because with a playlist, a free tier can play from the start to the end. Of course, there's ads, but you can actually curate how they listen. Also, I don't know if you can zoom in on the description, Curtis. I'm going to go full screen, but you'll also see I link to, I say CDs, vinyl, and merch, sunwarper.bandcamp.com. So a lot of people listening on Spotify aren't going to go there, but the point is to have a way to direct people that do want to support you more than just streaming. They can go there and you've got it there. So that's kind of the way of discovery. You can also put your Bandcamp in your bio, and then you can also use the artist pick, which is the top section. You can choose, you can put a picture, but you can put text. So you could say, get the full song, get the full album on Bandcamp. And I'm checking my notes if there's anything else. You can link your socials in the bio, and then those socials can have your Bandcamp as the top. Abby asks, is Spotify okay with URLs like that? Well, they've discontinued being able to click the URLs, but you could still copy and paste them, which is an interesting thing we'll be talking about in next week's Marketing Minute with some of these Spotify scams, these bot playlists that I'm doing some
ahead.
digging. Yeah, because like I was talking to patrons before. I was getting on these weird bot playlists, but not by me. It was like 100 to 1,000 streams in a day, and then you disappear from the playlist. And when you go to it, it's really sketchy, the playlist. And I actually contacted Spotify for artists about it, but we'll talk about that next week. So yeah, Abby, they're okay with it in the sense you can put it, but you can't, it's not a clickable link, but you could copy and paste it. But it's still just, if someone wants to get to your merch, you're just making it a little easier than trying to get them to find it or something like that. As I was saying with the socials, you put those in your bio on Spotify because those are clickable links. And then in your header or your pinned post, you can put Bandcamp, website, anything like that. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about if you don't want to fully have your music on Spotify, you can kind of have your cake and eat it too. If you're okay with putting your music on Spotify, and I know that's a big if. One possible option is if you have a full album, just put a few tracks on Spotify, either as singles or as like an EP release, and then you pin that to your artist pick, which is at the top of your page, and in the description for it, put full release on Bandcamp. So that's pretty much all I've got. That's why I was saying it's a little bit quicker than it looks like. But I'm curious to hear Curtis and Eon Lake's take, and also, of course, to the chat. And we have a little bit. Frequency Control Center says that the 40 billion's all gone to 20 artists. I mean, yeah, but there's artists I know that get on playlists and they almost make a living off of it and things like that. And they're not big named or anything like that in the sense of like being, prominent. So yeah, it's a thing. But I just want to bring this up because we were talking about it in the Patreon, and a lot of the patrons wanted me to go into some of these, and I walked a few of them through making this discography playlist and things like that. So if anyone has questions about let us know in the patron groups, and we can work on it together over on Discord or something. But yeah, like you're the biggest proponent of Spotify I know, so I'm curious to get your take on it. I think you're muted, actually. I unmuted you.
I think if you're not using Spotify for reach, I mean, I don't really have a problem with that. I think that's its benefit, the reach. That's what it's got going for it. So I think it does make sense to actually use it as a marketing tool. It's the only way in for some people. At the same time, I'd say if you're only focusing on a single streaming service, you're being a bit stupid as well, because, even though they're by far the biggest, the numbers of people that the other smaller percentages account for in the US alone are still massive. Yeah. But yeah, and I think, until they make it more difficult or, stop you from being able to do it, cross-linking with these platforms, you want all roads to come to you, really. Because the best situation for you as an artist is to know your audience and who they are, so that you can own that relationship, and it gives you the opportunity to offer things of value to them if they're into it, whereas, you don't necessarily want anyone gatekeeping it for you in the way that, some streaming platforms that introduce merch services and so on are trying to do. They want to keep things that way. But yeah, I mean, we know how it works these days. If you're grinding as a musician, you need to use everything available to you, and then still have a fair bit of luck. So do what you can do, get yourself out there, and good luck to you.
Curtis, before I go to you, I'm curious to hear from the chat and anyone listening on Spotify. I'll put this as a question, and then if you're watching this back on YouTube, let us know in the comments. But does anyone have a dedicated website like sunwarper.com, curtis.com? And do you use it to sell merch? And do you see much merch traffic or physicals, anything like that, digitals even? I'm curious to see, and if that's something you'd like us to cover, making a website. I know Curtis has a website. I have a website. I've been noticing some traffic recently from the blog and things like that. And I think we're going to make an Audionautic one soon. Eon, do you have a website?
No, I have a domain.
You have a domain, but you don't have a website. Interesting. Yeah. So you pay for the domain, but you just haven't set up the website?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I think you probably should have one, really. And if you're, using MailChimp and email lists and things like that as well, then that's probably a benefit of having your website being the central point of everything. Because then you have contact with the people who are interested. That's what this is all about, right? It's not to try and broadcast to people who don't care. It's to find people who are interested and be of value to them. I think your website's got to be the best tool for that.
Yeah, and FCC says, I have a website, but then I am a web designer. I'm curious, everyone else in the chat, comments, all that. Let us know if you've been considering making a website, and if you want us to cover best practices, SEO optimization, and things like that. Curtis, what about you? What's your take on the Spotify? What do you like about your website? All that stuff. Sorry, that's a few things, but it's the way she goes sometimes.
It's the way it's fair. I'll start with the Spotify. it's great to do it that way. I tried it with Marooned. So the only place that you'll find the full Marooned is actually on Bandcamp. And I like that. I think that's really cool because my Bandcamp is where you actually get all my stuff. But also you got people there's a couple of extra tracks on it, for example, and then people are like, oh, where's this track? I'm like, you have to go to Bandcamp to get it. And they're like, oh, okay. And then there's direct communication, there's CDs there and stuff like that. And so it does work. The notion of the discography playlist, again, there's one for Curtis as well, and that really helps. That's really good. When people say, oh, what's your Spotify, I send them that, because then that whatever it is, they're going to get it.
I'm sorry, that just reminded me, because this was a big part of the Spotify thing. When you do promotion and you want to link to Spotify, Bandcamp, all that, you can use an aggregate thing, something like Linktree, or what I really like, this isn't sponsored or anything, but ToneDen. I think it's toneden.io makes one called FanLink. And what I really like about FanLink is if someone has used or clicked on anyone's FanLink before and went to a specific site, like they went to Spotify, then you can set it on this for free to just take them directly to where they've previously gone before, rather than going to this other tree of sites. And so it's one less click, which may mean more listens on your end. I really like it. You can design it, customize it. So if you're using FanLink and you post a specific album or song, just change the Spotify link to your discography, so that if any, like we had talked about, any free tier listeners go to the Spotify from it, they can listen to the playlist and hopefully listen to multiple songs, which is a win in my book. Anyways, Curtis, I'm sorry to cut you off there. That was one of the points that I forgot to put in my notes.
No, it's all good. It's very useful. So yeah, nice one. So yes, I'm a big fan of the whole try before you buy, which I'll put in the PG, not what I said in the green room before the show. The try before you buy is great because Spotify and streamers, they are great for reach, regardless of what you think about their business model or anything like that. People are using it. To not be on these streaming sites is putting yourself out in that regard. You're only hurting yourself, really. Now, whether you want to give your full amount of stuff to Spotify, maybe not. Maybe put a couple of tracks out here. Maybe turn your LP into an EP and then just put them out. But ultimately, it's going to get you out there without going into the playlistification side of things, which Venus Theory coined the other day, which is really nice. It is a good way for you to get heard, and then that's how you start to generate your fan base and then people who really care about you, they'll follow you on Instagram, they'll go find you on Bandcamp, and they will buy your CDs because your music is dope. And that's the best way of putting it, really. Gone are the days where you have to put everything up there. You don't have to put everything up there anymore. You don't need to. It is a tool. See it as a tool. I suppose it's the separation of the consumer and the producer. Like if you're a listener, you want to get as much as you can. You want to listen to the music you want to listen to. But as the producer, tease in it, for want of a better phrase. Well, I
really liked what you said too about if you don't have all the songs on Spotify and people see them and ask you, hey, where is it? You're kind of creating this demand almost, right? Or you are creating this demand, and you can say, well, it's here. You can buy it. You could do whatever. I've kind of done that with CD exclusives. Like only the CD has X songs that nothing else has. And I want to test out even doing more where it's like you can't even hear the song, or you only hear the live version from this like live set or something. And then the song's only available on CD or on vinyl or something like that. Just to see, it's just interesting ways, because if someone wants to support you, you give them kind of an extra reason or a better reason to, like, hey, it's not just, I appreciate the support, but you also get exclusive stuff.
Well, you're exactly.
I like that big brain move thing.
Yeah, it's like always about that yin and yang, bro. Yeah. Always about that yin and yang. Like it's like that notion of, okay, so the people who find you on Bandcamp are your true fans, right? They're the people who love you the most, or they love your music the most. Why not give them more? You know what I mean? Like if they're going to go out and seek you out, and why don't they get an extra couple of tracks on the album? Why shouldn't they get a CD for cheap? Why shouldn't they Why shouldn't they have access to unreleased stuff or back catalog stuff? Why not? Like,
Yeah.
It's the nice thing to do as a decent human being on this astral plane before we all die.
I got both like nicely optimistic and then horribly dark and morbid. I like that. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, it's all about balance, bro. It's all about
balance. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's my 2 cents on that. Anyway, also just to finish it off, websites. Yeah, love the website idea. Need to have one. I make weird, trippy space music, but my website's actually quite serious because that's how I get commissioned work and stuff like that. But that's a whole nother kettle of fish. But
I would like to cover that. I think that would be good to talk the different. Like I've been focusing my website on kind of around my YouTube and the production tips and things. I have a commissioned work section because I've been getting a lot of commissions lately, but that's not my focus. Whereas it sounds like yours is. So I think I'd love to hear, not today, obviously, but for another marketing minute, and chat, let us know if this interests you, and patrons will talk about it. But I think that would be cool to talk about the different ways you could format a website. FCC, maybe we could have you come on if you're willing to talk web design a little bit. I mean, I think both Curtis and I used a web designer, but I have learned how to do my own website. I was just lazy and wanted to use the quicker path. But there's all kinds of options. If you don't know anything about coding, there's ways you can do it. If you know a lot about coding, there's other ways to do it. Survey Channel says, I can't seem to crack the commission code. We have covered that a bit before, but things have changed for Curtis and I. So that's also something we can cover in Marketing Minute. Maybe chat, let us know. Do you want us to start making some polls, maybe just on the patron? We got a lot of our patrons here. Let us know what kind of things you want us to cover in the Marketing Minute. I think that might be fun. I do a lot of polls on my YouTube talking about marketing, and it does really seem to help get some involvement and just know what everyone wants to see or hear. So let us know if that's something that interests you. That might be fun to do.
Yeah.
And FCC says, yeah, loads of options. Happy to help out anyone. So yeah, maybe that's something we could do. We'll throw it in the patron, see if everybody wants some web design stuff. And FCC, we've had you on before. If you're willing to come on, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, that's what we need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very much so. Any more on the Marketing Minutes, gentlemen? Have we missed it?
You want more?
I'm just checking. I don't want to speak over anyone. Just
Ian, do you have anything else you want to add?
I was just going to give him a hard time for suggesting that you've been scrimping.
Yeah, I know. I took offense to that. I was like, what more could you want? I gave him 5 links to share. What else do you need?
Bro, I just want more. I want it all, and I want it now. That's what it is. But yeah, thank you very much. Okay, if that's it, and I will then move us across to the round robin.
Yeah, just really quick, patrons. If you an F? I thought you were doing the PH. What happened here?
I made it very quickly while I was cleaning the apartment.
I was like, did he have a change of heart?
I did get a little bit of anxiety. And then I was like, oh, okay, I'll go with it. And I was also cleaning, so I was like, yeah. But for anyone listening, it is Phat with a PH. But anyway, you were saying first.
Yeah. Well, 2 things. Patrons, now is the time. If you want to hop on in, come on over. The links are in the patron Twitter group and the Discord. And I'm going to quickly turn on my air conditioner because it's boiling in here. So I'll be off camera for a second. Hopefully you don't hear it. I think we have a noise reduction thing
on it. It's fine.
But yeah, so I'll be right back.
Okay, while he's doing that, okay, interesting. That's the new Sunwarper logo, by the way, for those watching. Designed it myself. Exactly. For the round robin, for anyone who is new listening in, or hasn't tuned in, or is not as adverse as some of us in this show, is our discussion topic based around production. We've just had one on marketing. This is the production side of things. I can hear that air conditioner. It's nice.
Sorry, guys.
It's all right.
Sleepy time white noise, right? I'm just here to help.
Exactly.
I don't even think it's on full blast yet, actually. So I hope it turns on.
For the round robin, the topic of discussion, we take one aspect of either music production or being a producer or the ethics of being a producer or something to do with music production, and then we just throw it out into the ether and see what everyone thinks about it. This is the community section of the show where it's like we're all sharing ideas and we're all throwing ideas at each other and hoping that something will stick and someone will gain a little bit of knowledge to take away back to the studio and give them some fresh inspiration or something along those lines. This week, as everyone keeps saying, frequency control sensor said it. It is Phat with a PH. We're looking at something quite, but I have put it with an F because, like
that's
I said,
all right. I'll forgive you. I was just
riding that imposter syndrome.
I got you covered. Hold on.
There we go.
Just keep talking. I got you.
We are looking at drums this week. This is a really interesting one. There you go. Thank you for the banner.
Actually, wait, I need to fix that because it should have.
I don't know what it's going to have. I don't know where he's going. He's going rogue. There we go. Phat is rogue. Like that. Nice. So yeah, we're looking at how to make our drums fatter. This is one of those classic kind of threshold crossing moments in music production where we move from our first couple of beats into our more, more fleshed out, so to speak, production project files. And there's different ways of doing it, and everyone's got a different way, from whacking up the gain to different plugins and stuff like that. And so I just wanted us to share our knowledge. How do we take, say, a basic drum beat or a basic loop or whatever, and then how do we turn that into the fattest thing? We have missed Hydrofighter by a whole 18 minutes, sadly, because he's the king. He's the king of fat drums.
But we do have Lightspeed from 2 years ago where we talked with Hydrofighter about his drums. So there is a playlist on our channel, Lightspeed. You can check it out. I'll try to link it after the video in the description. But yeah, it's a good one because, man, he makes some big drums.
Siblings Part 1 and 2, just absolutely fantastic. Yeah,
but J-Bell's got a really good some advice before we go into it. He says, feed your drums to McDonald's and you're good to go. Yeah.
That's the only.
I think Eon knows some McDonald's for plugins, like plug-in McDonald's. So I think we should start with Eon to talk about
plug-in McDonald's.
Yeah, plug-in McDonald's.
How
I think it starts with a D and ends with a C, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know. Yes. Yeah.
Hydrofighter, if you want to hop in you didn't have time to get on the call. If you want to come in the call, you're welcome to, but feel free to put some info. And I know Survey Channel as a drummer, he knows some really good tips too. But unless, Curtis, you have anything else to add, let's go to the McDonald's-ification of Eon Lake's plugin setup.
So yeah, if you want some morbidly obese drums,
supersized drums. Let's go with supersized.
Really thumping stuff. I like to do a lot of different things. Really, I like to vary it a bit, but generally the things that I do fall under the heading of external processing, saturation, distortion, obviously EQing. That kind of goes without saying, but yeah. And also a little bit of a psychoacoustic effect. So the plugin that Sunwarp was mentioning is the Soundtoys Devil Lock.
There it is.
Or either the simple one or the full-fledged one. That's really good for really smashing drums because it's like a combination of saturation and compression. You can really sort of crush the dynamic range, bring the noise floor up. And if you want them to, you can make them pump and breathe as well because you can really overdo it. And you've also, although there's a mix on it, you could also just do it parallel. In the New York style and just have a clean one and an absolutely smashed to bits one. If you want to balance them out a little bit, if you want to control your transients. I also like to, there's a Phat compressor simulator called the Pulsar Smasher, which is like the old Phat compressors, but I mean, it's horrific. It will absolutely crush sounds beyond what is actually useful and just comes into special effects. So I sometimes do that. A huge favorite of mine and one I've had to stop doing, otherwise everything I do is going to sound the same. I've got a Soma Lyra 8 synthesizer, and it has an external plug-in, and it has an overdrive circuit and some LFOs that control delays. There are 2 delays, and you can LFO the times of them. And my God, I've got the most mangled, tortured drum sounds I've ever heard out of that. I love that. to the point where I had to mix some dry back in because it was just absolutely horrific. But that being said, a lot of especially analog synthesizers have inputs on them, and I've said this before, I'm going to say it again now. If you have an input on a synthesizer and you haven't ever put samples or drums through it, I mean, are you even a producer? I don't know. This is where the fun lies.
Oh, you were so close to a Star Wars quote. This is where the fun begins.
Can you imagine if someone just tuned in just at that point and they got nothing to do with music production? So, what's this all about? And they got that from me on and it's just like I have no idea. I have no idea what this is.
And if you didn't know the answer to our question, how do you make drums fatter? So stick it into something with loads of knobs and dials on it. It's got to be.
You're just stealing everything I was gonna say. No.
But there's another one that I like to use as well, and that's it's a really, really short reverb, or more. It's the pre-delay of the reverb. So just feed drums into something that is so short you can barely hear it, but it adds this weird psychoacoustic effect to the top end. So the click on a kick drum, you can it stretches it out and gives it a bit more width. You can mix a little bit of a really short delay in that's like a really small room, and you might need to sometimes EQ out some of the lower frequencies, some of the boxier sounding frequencies, but it really helps your upper mids and your tops to give it to make it more audible in a mix. I don't know why. If there's for some reason you can just hear it better without it having to be louder. There are a lot of other things I do, but I could go on all night.
We'll read some from the chat, and then we'll move to Curtis and I. So
Decapitator, yes.
Channel says, Decapitator, another Sound Toys plugin. Kilohertz Fatterator. I've never heard of that. The big one, I agree with him. I mean, I'm sure I know Decapitator is great, and I'm sure the other one is sends to room reverbs is huge, just to kind of make it sound like everything's in a room. And then humanization, that's a big one, adjusting velocity, for example. And then FCC says another Sound Toys, Radiator is also very good for drums. And there's also Little Radiator, which is a fun little plugin.
Use that as well. Yeah. And let's remember that these aren't, it's not like pick one from this list.
Do them all at once. All at once. That's the way to do it.
Yeah, that's what we need. That's what we need. You first or me first, Sam Walker?
I don't care.
Wow.
Dealer's choice. It's round robin. That's your thing. So you tell me.
Well, okay.
I wrote some, but I'm willing to wait. I'm fine.
Let's hear what you've written, brother.
Okay. All right. So, kind of to Survey Channel's point, but a slightly different is dynamics throughout the track. So you can do things like EQ, cut off the low end of the drums, or start tapering the low end. So when you really want it to hit, you bring in the full low end of the kick and drums in general, but throughout like maybe the verse or something like that, or the intro, maybe you just cut from 60 under or 80 under, and then you slowly, when you want it to hit, or in terms of dynamics, right before a drop or a section you want to really hit, either drop the low end out or just do an EQ where you automate the low end coming out, right? As it right before you get there. And then when you get to the big part, you bring that low end back in, and it will dynamically sound massive because you're causing these different peaks and valleys and things like that. Reverb, which Survey Channel also said, but not just room reverb, but I like to also sometimes put reverb on the drum kit and just put a very low amount, just to kind of like, even just on the SP, like just on the effects of the drums, just put a reverb, like maybe 5-10%. You just get a little extra. It just makes everything sound a little bigger because there's more. You want to be careful with the kick with decay time and things like that, but what I'll usually do is cut the decay of the kick, like the actual kick, so the reverb adds a little bit, but it's like not that boomier part of the kick. Bus channel, kind of again like Survey Channel said, but what I like to do is I like to keep all my drums separate and EQ them individually, and then I send them into a bus channel where I'll do tape saturation, a little compression, and a limiter to kind of make everything about the same volume when they hit, but it doesn't sound flat in that way because you have all this other stuff on it. And then if all else fails, I just put the drums through either one or 2 instances of the SP compressor, because man, that thing just, I was telling Jan like this when we were talking in the green room, I think last time, but for some reason, the more you use of that compressor, it works opposite of a compressor. Instead of making things start to sound too similar and thin, it just makes it sound massive. And I don't know why, it's just magic. But yeah, I'm sure you can do it with plug-in compressors. And yeah, Abby says you could gate the reverb to cut the tail. Totally, but that's not, I don't want that gate sound. I actually want that natural tail of the reverb. That's the point. So I prefer working with the kick. And again, you can cut the low end of the reverb, and so that's another way to work around it. If everything kind of has that sound to it, it's the same as doing a bus room reverb, like what Survey Channel was saying to a degree. I just like to sometimes put it right on it instead of as a bus. Just different ways. Just try all these things and see what works for you. Yeah.
But that old gated reverb thing, it does literally take the middle of the sound and stretch it out.
Yeah, no, the gated reverb is another really good trick. I like to go for more of the natural sound, but if I'm doing synthwave or something, yeah, the snare will always get gated reverb, and then usually the bus channel of all the drums together will also have non-gated room reverb, something like that. And Survey Channel is a really interesting one. Sine wave generator on kick sidechained. That's very cool. And then we got Hydro Fighter. He says, I knew he was going to say this. Stacking parts has worked for me. For example, a kick with a strong attack, playing with a kick with a nice decay. Totally. And also, I know Hydro Fighter has talked about it before, but one thing I think that makes his drums sound really big, and any drums, is oftentimes he likes to put the drums very prominent in the mix. And I mean, that's just another way that just dynamically and psychoacoustically, whatever, just it's very prominent. And so it sounds massive. Then you add to that all the stacks and things like that, and you're just making a really powerful sound.
Yeah, or you could just take the drummer approach and like throw all the guitars in the bin.
Yeah, just have drums for 40 minutes.
What's the Metallica album that has no bass? What is it, Injustice for All? Right? Yeah. That's one way you could do it. Curtis, what about you? What do you got?
There's a few things, both stemming from what's going on up here, which is not very much, to be fair, and then just stemming and building up on some of the stuff we've got in the chat. So the big one, we've talked about kicks, and it's very prominent with kicks. I like to sometimes put a vocoder on the snare, for example, and then you would blend it with the dry and wet, but then just take the top frequencies, and that allows the snare itself to cut through the mix to a higher degree. Very good for like more up tempo stuff, and a lot of drum and bass does it as well. So that's just a small little piece, just playing with vocoders and playing with kind of like creating frequencies or something.
Because that'll bring out the formants and the old aural exciters, the Aphex aural exciters, bring out harmonics and do a similar thing to make things audible.
Yeah, and then you can even, I've even gone as far as printing a 100% or 100% wet, and then combining that with the full version of the original snare, if that makes sense, and then just kind of building.
You've really pissed off Survey Channel, apparently.
Oh, dude!
Curtis reveals my secret sauce. Yep.
Sorry, bro.
Got to get a new secret sauce, man.
Now with layering, I'm also a big fan of layering as well. So on, like, say I've got 16 channels in front of me, right? At the moment, well, for the live stream after the show today, there's 6 channels worth of drums, and they are just different. They're the same kit, which are layered on top of each other for different things.
I approve of this.
I thought you might.
Yeah.
The reason for this is so that you can layer those drums first and foremost, obviously, but then obviously I can manipulate them live as I'm doing it. But the important thing is, for me at least, I've found, if you're combining a couple of kicks, for example, you've got short decay, you've got long decay, you've got low end, you've got high end, EQing these within them, they're like you might double up with a bass and have like a high pass bass and a low pass bass. Do the same thing with your kicks and everything with your. Yes, someone.
I got a question for you. I'm doing the Eon Lake because I want to ask this. Because I've been doing this a lot lately. I think Beat Academy was talking about it for drums, but I love stacking drums like that. What I started doing now is adding, I guess you could call it a transient shaper, but the plugin I use specifically is the Enveloper from Logic, and you can duck the attack or the release of of any sound, the transient. So it works really cool with like guitar if you want to cut the end of it, or with drums if I'm stacking it, I like to add that attack. So it's kind of just like taking out the big transient, or you can emphasize the big transient and take out the release. So I'm curious.
So you can even choose which part of which sound you want.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm having the initial transient from that, but I want the body from that.
Yeah. And Curtis, before we get back to you, a couple interesting bits in the chat. Survey Channel forgives you. He says, just kidding, it's a good tip. Yeah, I've never done that. I'm gonna try that. That's really cool. And Hydro Fighter has something interesting. He says, have to be careful how the drums are mixed with the bass. I still struggle with this because I like deep bass tones. Ever notice how Music Has the Right to Children, which is by Boards of Canada, I have a rep in their shirt today, does not have very prominent bass parts. Yeah, and the kicks, the low end in the kicks on that album are massive. And I guess that's part of it. One thing I like to do though is just a slight side chain to the kick to the drums, so that from the bass, so the kick has that attack, and then the bass will kind of swell in gently. It's not audible, but just there enough to kind of give that headroom for the kick to be there. And then the low decay of the kick. That's another thing I like to do. I don't know, Hydro Fighter, if you do those, but I feel like for me, that's one way to kind of get that compromise, but they both work. Like you still get the big bass tone, but you get that kick that's very prominent. You can even use that transient shaper and have the attack of the kick be very prominent, and then cut the release so that the bass has it. That's why I like those low decayed kicks in general. And FCC says, yes, Hydro Fighter, drum heavy, but not much bass, in reference to Music Has the Right. Curtis, what you like to do very fat bass as your mastering engineer. I can say that. So what's your workaround for, do you just keep it hot and just let them go, or do you do transient shaping, anything like that?
It's mainly about side chaining and layering different side chains together. The reason the reason it's an old trick, but it works, you know. So like I'm not saying anything new here, but okay. So I usually have between 3 and 4 basses in a track, for example, and then they're all side chained to each other at varying events, which then goes into a bus, and then that bus is side chained with the drum kit. Sometimes as well, depending on the track, there's also side chained to the kick and the snare, for example, which are on separate tracks. There's a lot of weaving, kind of. I feel like it's a bit like weaving things in and out, and for a long time it didn't work, and then I kind of made it work by just kind of keep going with it and that kind of thing. A bed of side chains or bedside chains, yeah, along those lines. And it's basically there. If we think about the music, or why are the drums fat, or why do we want to make the drums fat, or why do we want to make them more prominent in the mix? Okay, as well as like just keeping those faders up and making it high in the mix, also you can afford to have those dynamics where when they come in, other things are ducking out of the way. It's a really, for me at least, it kind of makes your mix, it truly makes your mix this kind of like congealed kind of moving
I love
mass.
that word, congealed. Yeah. My wife always laughs because when I make oats, I'm like, let it sit for a minute, it's got to congeal.
There you go.
It's got to thicken,
yeah, so that's what you got to do with drums, let it congeal.
You got to let the whole thing move as one like entity, you know, like that orb in Dark. I don't know if you've ever seen Dark, the TV show. Like it's just this black orb which is hovering and moving and pulsating, and that's your whole track. And so by threading in your side chains in a very lovely way, in a delicate way, because it's like a balancing game, isn't it? More over here, less over here, less over here, that kind of thing. It allows the whole thing to move, so that bass can really duck and then come in with the decay of the kick, for example. But then it's also very thick because like you said later on, because you've got that high dynamic range, things kind of move in and out, and therefore the ears, it's still pleasing to the ears and it's novel for the ears. And so that's my
also another thing too, just like similar to dynamics, is doing layers of drums, introducing them in different parts of the song. So maybe the song starts with just one drum, like one layer of drums, right? And then when the chorus hits, you have a whole other layer of drums. I like to do that, cut the kick, cut the EQ of the next one you add, so that you only have one prominent kick or one bassy kick, and then the rest are like the clicks and things like that. But yeah, or add additional hi-hat variations, things like that. Yeah, there's tons of stuff. I mean, we could probably go on forever about this, but luckily we can continue this talk in the patron groups, right? Yay. So, you know, we'll just move over there when we're done with this. But does anybody have anything else that they feel is very important that needs to be said about this topic?
Well, I think,
Of course you do. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah. I mean, this is drums, right? This is important. Right?
You are a drummer. You are a drummer, so I'll give you that.
No, I mean, in the old days when you had to record a drum kit with a drummer with a ton of microphones and it took up loads of tracks on a tape and all that crap, you know, you had one drum track, all right, multiple tracks were used for it, but you know what I mean. Nowadays, that's not the case, and it's all in a DAW, and it's just left and right for everything. There's no reason why you can't have, 8 drum parts. You do it with a guitar, and what you would do is you would play your chords in different positions. You'd use different pickups, you'd use different strings, different tunings, different amps.
The Siamese dream approach, right?
Exactly, yeah. And I love this. I love that kind of thing. And it's like, why can't you do that with drums? It's an instrument. Their sounds, especially if you decide to take different approaches to certain different layers of them, right? Well, these ones I'm going to smash to pieces. They'll have no transients, and they'll sit in the middle. This bit is just going to be a filtered thin little, almost like percussion-y thing, but it's actually a full kit playing rhythms and fills and stuff. But then you filter it down so it sounds like it's coming through a headphone or something, and just put it in like an extra hi-hat part or something. There's a million things you can do just by building them together in the same way that you do with other sounds. You don't have to think about things in the old way anymore. You can do anything.
Yeah. To that point, I have one other tip that I use all the time, and it's controversial because it relies, at least for what I use it for, Logic. Logic has a built-in drummer that you can just change complexity, simplicity, loud, soft, and you can choose what parts of the drum you actually want this thing to play, and it just generates a drum track. And there's tons of different types of drummers, like EDM drummers, but I'll do usually like a percussionist drummer or even just a live drummer. And I just set maybe the hi-hat, kick, and a shaker or something. And you just program complex, soft, whatever. And then I just put that in the background in choruses and things like that. And it just really opens up that chorus to have a lot more movement. And it's probably not even noticeable, especially when I use the percussion ones. They're just way down in there. But if you mute it, you audibly tell the difference. It just sounds dull. Yeah. And then when you add it, it's just
groove as well, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Like in Moonmeld, you probably don't even notice there's some sort of percussions from Logic in the chorus parts of it. But when I took it out, it's like, what is missing? It's so boring now. And then I added it back in, and you don't hear it, but if you solo it, it's like, oh, okay, there it is.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I start the other way around. I have one that doesn't have a lot of transients in it, and then I use other kits to sort of emphasize certain notes. And then squash them together a bit.
Yeah.
The only addition I have to that is that when Eon Lake was speaking about how that drums are instruments too, I immediately saw him on a picket line with a sign. Just walking around the embassy, just like the drum right now, that kind of thing. That's what it is. That's all I have to add to that.
And then a T-shirt with an arrow pointing up saying this.
Yeah.
Drums are people too, man.
The revolution has begun.
All right, I think that's probably the last time we'll ever talk about drums, at least in my presence.
We've exhausted you on the topic? I doubt that.
No, it's just exhausted yourself listening to me, I'd imagine. But
not at all. Next week, we'll talk about the best hi-hat sounds. That's what we'll talk about.
One other thing I do, especially with things like Digitact, is I vary the pitch ever so slightly of notes.
Yes, automation is huge.
Yes, automation,
and panning. You can do like an auto pan.
A little bit of like ping pong as well, just a little bit, just kind of get that little echoey one, which is similar to a reverb in that regard. But let us know in the chat and watching back and on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts, everywhere that people come to us. If you want Eon Lake to go on about drums, you can do over on our Discord. He'll be there for days.
But don't forget,
drums are instruments too. Another T-shirt.
That's the key takeaway of today's episode. Not Spotify, not Bandcamp, not Moog. Drums are instruments too, okay?
Very much so.
Yeah, the survey channel real quick says super wide and fast auto pan. Yeah, no smoothing. I don't know about that. But I really like to, with hi-hats, do even either an auto pan or just automate the pan just to go left, right, just a little bit. It really moves it around, especially if you then add the velocity and things like that. Yeah.
Completely. We'd like to know you guys coming back, listening back, watching back, however you are consuming this. What are your ideas? This is always a chance of the show for. We love hearing what you guys have to say because we're just a couple of dudes and a chat, and we want to know and more people with more ideas because there's no right or wrong with these things. There's always something that someone has to try new.
Yeah.
So.
Survey Channel says, got him. I don't know. I kind of like the idea of an auto pan that's super wide and fast. That could be very chaotic. Maybe for like the Doom Death Warper. That might be the way to go.
That could work. That could work.
I'll give it a go. I don't care.
When I don't have enough transients, I sometimes put an auto pan that's got a sawtooth on it or a square wave to cut the noise out. Set it to 16ths and dial it in. So yeah, it's a bit like that, except I don't have any phasing, so it doesn't go left right. But I could add some. And
Survey Chill says I should put the smoothing bit. Yeah, I mean the no smoothing would be rough because it's just like chaos. But what I mean is like maybe if that's what you're going for, a sense of chaos or something like that, maybe it would work. I don't know. I like to never say no to or never say never to these kind of things because you never know.
You don't have 5 hi-hats playing different parts, pan differently.
Are you even drumming?
You might do that, yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay, Eon Lake, I'm not going to ask you, but Curtis, any final things we want to talk about of these drums before we move on?
Okay, I think we have it covered. I want to hear more from the community, and I want to hear more from people watching back, people on the Discord, in the Patreon chat. I want to know more. There's been a lot of talk about this before we went live, and it's been a very lively session of Round Robin, and I hope that will continue throughout the week. And try something new, and let us know how it worked. Some awkward. Go do the vocoder thing. I'm gonna go and have a look at some auto panning.
I'll tell you what. I'll use it on the drums in my live stream tomorrow. I'm gonna test it out because the SP has a vocoder. It should. I believe it has a vocoder. So I'll put it in there because I'm doing lo-fi house with Juno 60 samples and your drums that you sent me. So
all right,
I'll see how now I'll see how the vocoder sounds on your drums.
Okay, we'll see.
So if it doesn't work, it's all his fault. I swear.
Yeah, it's always
that's how I can work my way out.
So thank you ever so much for joining us for this show.
Before we're done, though, hold on.
Is there more?
There is a slight bit more. Eon, like, what do you have going on this week?
Oh yeah, we do that, man.
That's what I have going on this week. I'm not planning this week. I've started to write a new EP that's based around patterns and polyrhythms and all my favorite things. So I've got one track that's largely done for that, and I'm going to be doing extra bits, but I'm going to be doing it using the play tray approach, making interesting sounds out on their own and then using them as a basis to do a song. So yeah,
interesting. If you need any remixes, hit us up.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
And Curtis, what have you got going on? Oh, and if you need to release it on a label, we're more than happy to.
Yeah,
that was the idea.
Yeah. Okay, good. Because you always shun us, So we're like, hey, whenever you got to release, you're like, who are you? Just kidding.
As if.
Curtis, what have you got going on this week?
Yeah. I'm gonna keep on my trip of trying to go sort through the massive project files that I've been creating and trying to put them into a more of a production side and come up with some songs. So I think that's where I'm at. As I said at the beginning of the show, I've really been struggling this week to get that creative vibe, but it's Wednesday and we have ADSN, and that always gives me a good trip. So we're going to see what happens on Thursday morning. Hopefully it's going to be fun.
Do you have another challenge live stream this week, or?
Yeah, I've got to do a fusion of dungeon synth and doom metal.
That'll be good.
It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, you got it. Drop A, just like constant playing of the of like a low end just A note, and then whatever for the dungeons, just go for it.
We'll see. So that was brought to us by Survey Channel and by ASF Stripe.
Are you gonna do clean guitars or distorted?
I'm gonna install the black stuff.
Clean doom.
I know. Right?
Clean doom metal dungeon synth. That's what I want to hear, man.
Exactly.
That sounds like a heavily detuned mandolin then. Sure.
We'll see. I've got the lags in C. I've not quite got down as far as drop A, but we'll find it, and it's going to be fun. Could be good, could be amazing, could be terrible. We'll find out in about 45 minutes, probably. So we'll see. So yeah, what about you, Samuel? What are you up to this week?
Yeah.
I got some mastering work for a as yet unannounced Audionautic project that's coming out soon. Awesome new project. And then, of course, I've hopefully got this live set up now and won't have any more weird MIDI conundrums, but practicing that. And then I've got, like I said, that live stream tomorrow, Lo-Fi House. That's what everybody voted for. So I think it'll be cool. Those Juno 60 sounds are insane. So I'm going to use chromatic mode to play them and make the track. So it's all SP tomorrow. That's it.
It'd be awesome.
Maybe a synth. I don't know. I don't want to lock myself into just the SP, but yeah. And then the last thing is I finally have the release I've been waiting for on next Wednesday is coming out, and I just have to do a bunch of promo for that because that's probably of anything I've ever made, it's probably my favorite. And Curtis, I still have to send it to you to do the visualizer.
Yeah, I was going to say I need to do the visualizer.
Yeah, it's a very important track. So and that's kind of part of this like live set. It's based around it. And Survey Channel says Juno 60. Yeah, so that'll be fun. But yeah, so it's busy, but we love busy, right? And I can't wait to see what you make with this. I hope you do clean guitar, doom, metal, dungeon synth. But you know, I can dream. I don't want to add more complications to you, but I would love to see some clean, no amp simulator. just
the guitar plugged straight in. Yeah.
That'll get your brain thinking creatively. You said you're feeling in a rut. Just go nasty sounding. Just clip the gain, and there's your distortion. That's all you need, right?
Just gnarly. We'll see how it is. It'd be like back when I was 12, plugging in all my separators
Audacity,
into the input
right?
channel. Yeah. I can't wait. It'll be great. So
yeah, you got it.
Fun with that. Yeah. That's what we need.
Lastly, if you got something out of the episode, leave a like, share the video. It helps a ton. If you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, give a rating, share it as well. And we're almost at 450 followers on the Audionautic Radio playlist, and it's going to get a big update this week. New Aphex Twin is going on there, of course. I really like that song, but we're getting to that 450. So if you haven't checked it out yet, latest in independent and chill electronic music. If you would like to get your music on there, submit it to the Audionautic Twitter or my Twitter. Just message us, and we'll check it out. But I think that's everything. Yeah. Other than, I just want to reiterate again. Drums are instruments too.
We got this.
T-shirts to come.
But hey, we really appreciate everybody hanging out. Now. Yeah, we really appreciate everybody hanging out, and all of the opinions on Moog, all this stuff. We love hearing that, and everybody's different takes on making Phat with a PH drum sounds. I mean, the McDonald'sization of it, as Eon Lake typically does with Devil Lock. It's just awesome. So that's what we're here for, and we'll talk more over in the Discord and Twitter. So yeah. Anything else, gents?
Eon Lake?
No. I just say thanks for everyone who's been hanging out with us. Everybody who's listening. We really appreciate it. That's the first and most important form of support, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah. And very much so. Thank you ever so much. It's been lovely to hear what you guys are up to and what you're doing and how you take what we're putting here. So thank you ever so much. We'll see you next week.
So I just realized this is one of our longest episodes, and our last one was too. So I'm curious to hear, do you all prefer the long episodes or the short ones? Let us know, because it's interesting. Just curious to hear from all of you. What's your take? And we will see you next week. Thanks for watching.